Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. This week, Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer joins me to discuss mining's increased investigation of renewable energy, government support for a national platinum strategy, and the PGM zone gazetting. Welcome, Martin.
Hi, Sashni.
Now, more companies are mulling the possibilities of renewable energy, with RBPlat and Orion already making headway.
Yes, Royal Bafokeng Platinum disclosed that they are looking into actually implementing a situation where they harness the sun, and Orion Minerals, which is down in the Northern Cape, they announced this week that they are also looking at solar power. And this just follows a theme. Every new presentation you go to, this question is coming up: where are you going to get your power from? And besides Eskom being a problem, there's also climate change mitigation. So they're moving in the direction of solar power generally, but not excluding wind. And it's becoming a business case. Every time you say to them, is this a business case? I mean, are you going to produce it at a cheaper rate? Are you going to get your electricity at a cheaper rate than you do from your national utility? They say, yes, we're going to do it cheaper. And are you going to actually do this yourself? No. So a third party comes in and they actually build everything, build, own and operate. So it's like a real no-brainer for these mines, and they're really going into it. We see even like a huge coal mining operation like Glencore, the biggest supplier of seaborne coal in the world. They've put a cap on coal supply. They won't produce more than 150 million tons a year. But in some of their operations, like one in Canada, they've also got wind energy. So you can see the renewable ideal is spreading across the mining industry. I looked at a map the other day and they showed you spots in Africa where there is now solar power, wind power. So the message is really getting through.
And RBPlat is praising government for its support of the national platinum strategy, calling it encouraging.
Yeah, I think that the Minerals Council South Africa has done a very good job in setting up a national platinum strategy. Platinum group metals are not like anything else in South Africa. There's no one in the world that's got these. We had a long history of gold mining, but people are mining gold all around the world. When you look at the supply of platinum group metals from outside of South Africa, it's very small. We've got, up to 80 to 90%. You can see a little bit coming out. Well, Russia produces quite a lot of palladium. There's also a percentage of palladium coming out of North America. Zimbabwe has scope to produce a lot more, and I think any problems in South Africa will mean that they just accelerate and they will benefit across there. So I think the labour movement should realise that if they shoot us and everybody else in the foot here, Zimbabwe is ready to move, particularly under the new government now, and the world will still be needing that. So they put their foot on the accelerator, which means we'd lose out. So hopefully that doesn't take place. But there is a potential, as the Minerals Council South Africa has delineated, that we can take the high road on platinum and produce something like more than 8 trillion rand worth of benefit for the South African economy by 2050. And that is working not so hectically, but just cleverly with the government, making sure that the marketing of this product is done maybe collaboratively. It's not going to be a big burden on the state at all, but giving them legislative backing and some cooperative backing where they work together rand for rand is going to benefit the people of South Africa enormously. They're not only talking about fuel cell development, but they're looking at trying to accelerate jewelry demand, and there's a lot of potential in China to do that. They're also looking at Mandela coins and all sorts of ornaments they're talking about that possibly they'll do in platinum. So I think there's some interesting thinking going on in the background. Hopefully it'll make sure that we just start coming out of the problems with platinum. We've still got this issue of labour unrest spreading into the platinum areas from gold. We hope it won't be a repeat of what we've seen before, so prolonged. And but you can see the prices going up. You can see that not only is platinum not as bad as it was in terms of pricing, but it's been ably cushioned, that platinum blow, because there's a family of platinum group metals And all these companies are now referring to themselves as platinum group metals companies. Nobody wanting to just say platinum, because platinum, unfortunately, was blasted by the Dieselgate. People didn't want to take diesel cars. That was intricately linked to keeping the air clean when diesels emitted fumes. Their movement over has boosted rhodium, particularly, that's gone through the roof, and also palladium. So that's cushioned the blow, and collectively now you can see them coming with a far better basket price, as they call it, both in dollars and especially in rands.
And speaking of PGMs, Impala Platinum expects the gazetting of the Platinum Group Metal Zone in Springs in May.
Yeah, this is great news that, you get one of the companies within the group of platinum producers in South Africa just taking a special position around fuel cells and donating 16 hectares to Gauteng government and saying we can cooperate here on a special economic zone. We may be looking at components for fuel cells, or maybe producing the fuel cells, but we'll have tax benefits within this area. We're so close to the platinum, and then that will be supplied across the fence, to activities that they need in the fuel cell business, and also to come into the hydrogen age, where we see the world, in particularly Japan and Germany, California, and China now going at a faster pace. People are starting to say, look, let's use this hydrogen opportunity. We can have the platinum catalyzed fuel cell, produces electricity, drives our vehicles. In China, these vehicles that are petrol and diesel driven, particularly trucks, are not allowed into the Beijing during the day. But if you are fuel cells, you can come in at any time. So it's been a huge incentive. There's one state there that is producing these vehicles at a rate of knots. And that's always important. If China gets going, it can lower the costs, because cost is a big consideration here. And also the fuel cell can drive trains, it can drive trams, it can drive trucks, and one day probably drive planes, because it's able to do the big load. Whereas technology around battery electric vehicles at the moment hasn't reached the point where the battery weight is not a consideration. That's why it's better to use those battery electric vehicles for smaller vehicles. But when you start getting bigger, the fuel cell definitely, just takes over. And it doesn't change any of the systems we used to. You go along to the fuel pump, but you get liquid hydrogen that isn't dangerous. So people are saying we mustn't lose sight of that this is still moving around. And we in South Africa needs to start emulating it a bit. And it's great that this area will be gazetted in May, where we can get started. We've spoken about it for so many years. If you go to the refinery at Impala Platinum in Springs, you will see a forklift going around there, and that's driven by a fuel cell. And they tell me it gives no problems, there's no noise, and it doesn't even have to be refilled with hydrogen as quickly as people. It goes for several days, without having to have this refill. So they're very pleased with it. And you can see, American companies, big American companies, their warehouses now are just full of forklift trucks driven by fuel cells. And in California, you see cars driven by fuel cells. If you go to London, you see Anglo-American driving around in fuel cell cars. So it is happening, and hopefully it'll happen at a quicker pace, because we've been waiting for a long time.
Thanks for speaking with us, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Sashni.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on the local and global mining industries.